So, welcome. I'd like to call the Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole Economic Development meeting of February 21st, 2018 to order. I am Councillor Paul McPherson, your chair for the Economic Development Committee. We have all of council in attendance with the exception of Councillor Tony Brunet is not with us tonight. Also with us tonight, we have our Chief Administrative Officer, Michael Kirkopoulos. We have over in the back there our Economic Development Officer, Paul Deaney. I believe we also have our Senior Communication Advisor, Carrie Beattie, is here. I think she'll probably join us. And to my right, our Legislative Coordinator, Julie Kirkulis. So our first order of business. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? Seeing none. Confirmation of the agenda. Do any members have any changes to the order of business detailed in the agenda? Seeing none. We have a delegation this evening. So we have Stephanie Hicks, who is the Executive Director of the Downtown Beamsville BIA, and Chair Dr. Ray Darchie. In attendance to provide an overview of the Beamsville's BIA history, its future and value in our community. Stephanie and Dr. Ray, please come forward. I also would ask our CAO to tell us about Stephanie Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to just provide some brief comments about Stephanie, and I think she will take you through her presentation and speak to her skills and her expertise. But I do want to welcome Stephanie. She has been in the job only a few weeks, and you'll see in that very short time this presentation, I think, demonstrates her ability to quickly assess the continuous improvement needs of the BIA, recognize the value and contributions that having a revitalized downtown will mean for us from an economic development perspective. She will share with you a little bit about her background. I never like to mention other municipalities where staff have come from. She has come from another municipality in Niagara. We're glad to have her with us. I think she'll be a huge asset. Again, she'll talk about her skills and expertise, specifically around community development, beautification, and some of the other things she did. So I'm not going to steal her thunder. I've seen her presentation. It highlights a lot of her accomplishments, but I did want to welcome her here. I think together with the BIA, Mr. Deaney and the rest of our staff, you're going to see Stephanie do some great things and continue to support the great work of the BIA and both Jennifer and Ray have led with your support, Councillor. So I will turn it over to our delegates.
Well, I was going to introduce Stephanie, but Mike, you did a great job. So without further ado, yes. I think I do, yeah. Anyway, thanks for inviting us to allow us to present tonight. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, staff, and the public. We're excited to have Stephanie on board as well, and we're looking forward to a great future. And with no further ado, our new Executive Director of the BIA, Stephanie Hicks.
Thank you, and I wanted to thank you all for this opportunity. Now, I do mention what municipality I came from, so that is in the first slide of the presentation. So before I talk about this, and you're going to read through, I wanted to mention my previous before I entered the BIA world. I worked in the hospitality and tourism industry, doing hardcore sales and management for 13 years in Niagara Falls. The opportunity arose with Welland, and I wanted to expand my professional portfolio, so I became the Executive Director for Downtown Welland. What's important to note is that Welland Downtown BIA, I was their first staff. So they did not have any foundation, they did not have a constitution, there wasn't a database, direction, a functional website, they didn't do events, and no social media. And as you get to know me, you'll know that I am crazy in love with social media. You'll see on the left-hand side the events that we were able to bring into downtown Welland. Some we hosted with the city and others we took on our own. There are key accomplishments listed there that we were able to do in 3 years, and funding successes. So prior to having a staff, we relied solely on our levy. However, having a staff there, they were able to go to council and present, apply for permissive grants, apply for Niagara Regional grants that became available, apply for any organization events. There's a lot of organizations out there that have grant money towards events, seek out sponsorships, event revenues, which is after every bill was paid for an event, and in-kind services. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the values of BIAs. Just not everybody knows what a BIA is. I'm sure everyone here does, but possibly not the audience. So according to the Ontario Business Improvement Area Handbook, BIAs have 6 key functions, which are economic development, revitalization and maintenance, beautification, special events, marketing and promotions, and communication. Why do downtowns matter? They represent sustainable development, making the best use of our existing infrastructure. They create compact communities that encourage walking, cycling, and transit use. They have historic connections to the origins of the community. They have symbolic significance as the center of civic life. They are a central hub for festivals and celebrations. They reflect a positive image of the entire city. They provide opportunities for local and incubator businesses. And I just wanted to focus on the incubator businesses because every downtown has that story where a company comes in, they open up their business, and then they leave the downtown. And some people look at that as a loss, that they've lost that business in the downtown. However, their success was so great being in the downtown that they have outgrown that space. So incubator businesses is key to the downtown, and they offer an experience not found in malls and plazas. All right. Who benefits from a BIA? Business operators benefit, property owners benefit, the community benefits, and the municipality and province. BIAs have a lot of partnership opportunities. They have access to municipal programs, so community improvement plans and town incentive programs, provincial revitalization programs with OMAFRA, product service suppliers, partnerships and networking opportunities with other BIAs. BIAs are known for, they have a saying where they R&D, which is rip off and duplicate, but it's because most of them only have 1 staff or 2 staff, and they look for the quickest way possible. So the BIAs are all about sharing their best practices. Government agencies, associations, local organizations, and the Ontario BIA Association membership, which I will refer later on in the presentation as OBIA. BIAs can partner to develop common goals and vision, be a unified voice for local business issues, be a forum for discussion, and they have opportunities for funding. BIAs can apply for grants, we can seek out sponsorships, we can charge vendor fees for events, and we can obtain event revenues. I wanted to talk a little bit about the past of the Beamsville BIA. So on October 16th, 1978, bylaw number 7881 was enacted designating the Beamsville Central Business Area. The levy collected in 1978 was $8,000. In 1983, there was a revision to the bylaw, which added in basically a municipal parking lot, and that was the only update to our current bylaw. In 2009, there was a change to the Municipal Act, which making all BIAs into a local board of council. Presently, the downtown Beamsville BIA services about 45 to 50 businesses, and it is the same catchment area as 1978. In the bylaw, it's actually designated as lot numbers, not by street boundaries. The levy collected present day is $8,000. The Beamsville BIA has 2 solid years of the farmers market under their belt. The engagement of the members and the community is on an upswing. And I mentioned there, the bylaw has not been reviewed, and it currently contradicts the Municipal Act. The current branding that the Beamsville BIA has, you'll see our logo there on the left. We have social media, so Facebook, it was at 239 likes prior when I first did this presentation, but we are at 318 likes today. And our website is a little outdated. It's a WordPress form. It does have broken plugins, which can't be fixed because WordPress, they're free-based plugins, so we can't update those. So it's kind of a half-functioning website. So now the future. So the BIA created a strategic plan summary, 2017 to 2021, with the vision of an expanded downtown Beamsville where residents and visitors enjoy a pedestrian-friendly, vibrant, beautiful destination and gathering place with thriving and successful businesses. How can we do that? We need to operate a sustainable, professional, and credible member-driven organization, work with the town and other partners to plan a thriving downtown, attract visitors, shoppers, and businesses to downtown Beamsville, and advocate for the needs of businesses in downtown Beamsville. So let's make this easy. We need to enhance, expand, engage, educate, put on events to get people exploring, increase economic development. We need to examine what needs to change in order for these ease to happen, and all of that does equal expenses. Enhance. One of the first things we can do is enhance our existing event, which would be the farmers market. Possibly look at a new location. It is gaining credibility in its current location. However, my concern is that its current location is not accessible. It is uphill, so it isn't conducive for parents with strollers or wagons or seniors, so that could be a deterrent for people attending. They have a fabulous logo. With the amount of wineries, there should be a local wine vendor, and you can sell bottles of wine at a farmer's market, so I would look at adding a wine vendor. Go after sponsorships and grant money. Possibly change the time. Most farmers markets end at noon. Implement more vendors, and hopefully with sponsorships and grant money, create a family activity component that would drive families to want to attend the farmers market. Expand. You'll see in the bold black, that is the current catchment area. This was mapped out in 1978, and that probably was the business concentration in 1978. The area, what we would like to see happen is that our catchment area is bordered by street names in our bylaw, as well as expanding it to include businesses that aren't currently in it. If one of my goals is to update this catchment area into a Google Earth image, and you would see right now, if I overlaid this on a Google Earth image, it really does cut off where there's one business right in the middle of downtown, and right next door, that business is not in our catchment area. So technically, they would not be considered downtown according to our current bylaw. Engaging the members and the community. So many BIAs have lost the BIA in their logo. Most people don't know what a BIA stands for, so they change it to have the word downtown. Downtown gives it an actual destination. One example I want to use is Port Credit, and Port Credit, they have that always on, always electric, and I can tell you in every BIA presentation it is always used because everyone loves their logo. It's very modern. Also, create a new website, to have a functioning website to be able to communicate with our members as well as the community. Have a page where we can post all the agendas, minutes, and important information. Also encourage and teach downtown members to utilize their own websites and their own social media. That drives content and allows us to be able to cross-promote. And create a quarterly newsletter, hoping to make it monthly, but for the start, it would be quarterly. And implement more social media. Educate. We need to educate our members on the programs that are available to them. So the CIPs, the Facade Improvement Grant Program, monthly meetings, committee meetings, and the AGM. We need to get more attendance and encourage more attendance from the downtown members. Let the downtown members know what our bylaws and policies are, not just ours as a BIA, but also the town's bylaws. There are property standards that business owners need to know. What happens if they do get graffiti on their building? Who is responsible for that cleanup? Educate them on where their money is going and educate them on the return of investment of BIAs. A goal would be to put on more events in the downtown. Events bring people to the downtown, so it brings more feet in the street. It's kind of mass marketing. If you're at an event, you have no choice but to look around, and a lot of times I've certainly gone into a downtown where there's an event, I'm sure somebody else here has, where you look up and you see a store and you go, I didn't know that was here. So events is crucial to the downtown. Economic development. BIAs work with the landlord's properties to assist and ensure property is rentable. Creating a database of available space for small business interest. Ensuring that vacant properties are being maintained and not an eyesore. BIAs can partner with the municipality on available grants geared towards economic development and business improvement areas for large-scale projects. This is actually your odds. If you look at some grants, they're based on a point system, and you gain more points if a municipality partners with a BIA in the grant, just for partnering. So there's lots of grants available that we can do that. There's a benefit to having a small business located in the business improvement area. By completing all the above, enhancing, engaging, expanding, educating, events, exploring, it makes the downtown more friendly, appealing, safe, a place to shop, dine, and use professional services. And we need to brag about our accomplishments, create a buzz about what's happening downtown. If we're not being talked about, it is very hard to exist. So we need to examine what we need to do to get there. The town of Lincoln prides itself on a place to grow, a place to prosper, and a place to belong. How can Beamsville BIA link on to that? What we need to do to succeed is we need to fast forward from 1978 and bring us up to 2018, and I feel that that does start with at least updating our bylaw. And I wanted to give you an idea of our expenses. So this is 2017. This is the actual budget. So you can see what the revenues that came in as well as what went out. And I wanted to make a note there that audit fees at the bottom and insurance, those are not optional. We absolutely must, we have to use the town's auditors, so that fee is not negotiable, as well as insurance is in the bylaw that we must be insured, and obviously we would want to be insured, especially hosting events. So here's a sample of a budget that I created if our levy was at $30,000, which is less than the cost of living increase since 1978. So you can see there under the revenue, member levies at $30,000. I have in there HST rebate, because you'll see on the expenses side why that's important, as well as events, grants, and sponsorships. And there's no dollar amount assigned to that because I don't believe in putting money in a budget that doesn't exist yet. So expenses, again, audit and professional fees not negotiable. Conference and meetings, this is the OBIA National Conference. It pays for itself in the education and resources that you get to bring home from that. Insurance is not negotiable. Memberships and permits, OBIA has a membership. It is membership-based, as well as the Farmers Market Ontario is a fantastic membership that right now it's not in our budget to afford. And with us having that farmers market, they not only promote the farmers market with us, they lead us to available vendors, and they also lead us to available grants. We would be able to move our finances in-house. Right now, the town of Lincoln handles all of our finances, and with that, we do not qualify for any HST, which is why the HST rebate is so important. And then there's simple office flowers. You'll see their hosted events. We would be able to implement another event. Sponsored events. It's important to get our name out there that we're sponsoring an event in the community, even if it's sponsoring a hot chocolate tent onto some winter event. It's important to have our name out there. And then rebranding and marketing. So we want to put the Beam back in the Beamsville BIA. So beautification, it's more than just flowers. It's planters, bike racks, banners, parquets, art installations, garbage refuse, graffiti removal, streetscaping, lighting, signage, vacant property standards, etc. All that falls under the beautification umbrella. Economic development, working with property owners to ensure that available space is occupied and that optimum business and service mix is achieved and maintained. Looking at expanding the catchment area to include more businesses, and potential new businesses will benefit from being part of a BIA. advocacy, act as a voice for the business community and establish important relationships with other community voices, forum for community concerns, pursue policies and activities to promote and strengthen the community, as well as feedback mechanism for council issues. And lastly, marketing events and promotion, retain and expand customer base, encourage local residents and others to shop, dine, and use services, create unique experiences to gather feet in the street at family-friendly, inclusive events, apply for any applicable grant funding or sponsorships to assist with costs, promote downtown businesses through all social media platforms to reach a larger demographic. So that's it from me. We have an official hashtag, which is BeDowntown, and we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as of last week, and there's my coordinates, how you can reach me. Any questions?
Thank you. Stephanie, you packed a lot into 20 minutes.
Sorry,
Very well
it's
done.
my first one.
We'll go around for questions, starting with Councillor Pachuriva.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stephanie, fantastic. Having been council's rep on the BIA for 10 years previous to this, having someone like yourself with the energy, with the passion, with the drive to expand the boundaries, because I think part of the problem, and going on that $8,000 1978 fees based on square footage, some of these businesses are paying $30 a year. If you don't have any skin in the game, you don't see the value. So let's bring it up to the current rate. Let's get you a nest egg. Events that bring people downtown. We used to do the Harvest Happening in October. We used to do the Strawberry Festival in the spring. There's a couple events that you might want to look at, bringing back. They used to get people downtown, and there would be that epiphany. I didn't know that store was here. What do they have? Go inside. Sponsored events. I have a sponsored event for you. You might want to sponsor as part of the Active Transportation Committee. We're going to have a bike rodeo. So put that on your list for sponsored events. Going to be in the summer, water pop, little streamers to go on bikes, but something like that. But I look forward to you taking this and running, because just your presentation, I think you're the person to do it. So I wish you all the best. I give you my card. Give me a call. I will help in any way, shape, or form, because I think we've finally turned the page.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councillor Ujima.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. Thanks very much for the high energy presentation. And I really like some of the things you're talking about, educating businesses downtown about what we have available here through the CIP. So I have a couple of questions. One question, so you were saying that the current bylaw, your current bylaw contradicts the Municipal Act. So I'm wondering if you can highlight what you mean by that a little further. And also, I don't know what the magic potion is for downtowns. Every municipality has a different mix of residents, and in our own municipality, we have a few different downtowns. So where some have one central downtown and everybody's sort of surrounded around it. There's every municipality has a different number of people to support that downtown, and they're mixed. They're spread across different areas. So I don't know what the magic potion is, but do you have any an opinion about a mix of retail versus services in a downtown? What's the magic mix now, and what effect does that have on the success of a downtown? And is that part of the vision?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to cover, I'll quote a few things in the bylaw. I'm not going to go through them all, but the ones that I feel are just, and I'm sure once I read them, you may go, what? So currently in our bylaw, it says that, first of all, that council must appoint our board, which most BIAs, they would appoint their board members and then bring the slate of directors to council to be ratified. I'm sure that's how it used to be done, but like I said, the Municipal Act was updated. Another line, and this is section 11 for anyone that does look up our bylaw, and I'd be happy to send our bylaw to anybody who wants to see it, that the board shall, as soon as possible after its members are appointed in each year, elect a chairman, a vice chairman, and shall appoint a treasurer and secretary who may not be members of the board. So just those two items right there. Like right now, we do need more board members, but according to our bylaw, we can't even put our board members on the board to bring them to council. It's council that has to seek out our board members. So that there is just two examples, and I already mentioned one in the presentation, how we quote lot numbers, and that really needs to change. It really needs to be street boundaries, because so much has changed in these lot numbers since 1978. And then the other part, I really don't know the formula. Why it's so important to have mixed use is because, I mean, downtowns used to be the one-stop shop. So I'm sure that's why it's you know, where it's historical to have that, you know, you go get your hair done and then you go see the doctor and there's the dentist and there's a little boutique to shop at. It's what makes downtowns quaint and a desired location to go to. I think I covered them.
Yeah, it's a tough question, but I really appreciate your energy, and I'm also looking forward to the discussion about how to expand the boundaries, and I thought that the map with the old lots on that it's kind of funny when you look at it that way. It really doesn't make a lot of sense anymore, does it? No.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you. Thanks for coming in. I'm glad to see some excitement coming forth from the downtown business district. Couple of things. First of all, what do you see from a geographical standpoint, the extent of the boundaries that we need to maybe entertain?
If I may, and I don't want to preempt Stephanie's comments, but remember, she's been here 2 weeks, so be gentle. Go ahead if you want to
Through
answer.
you, Mr. Chairman. No, I appreciate that. I'm actually I would love to answer that at another time, but I would rather wait until I attend my first board meeting, which is tomorrow, where I'm actually employed with the BIA, before I answer that. I really would like to get my board's opinion.
Fair enough.
Okay, thanks. It's just time to move 40 years forward, so thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. And by the way, thank you for the presentation. I will go to Councillor Pacharivas. I was the one involved with the BIA before him, and we got into great shape before he came on board. So, anyway, it's. Well, I'm sorry. You can call a point of order on that, Mayor, if you wish. Just a couple of things, and you know, not trying to totally correct what's going on, but you know, your comments about the municipal act aren't quite right. But I do understand that the bylaw itself should be looked at seriously, because it is just a tad out of date, and it really should be upgraded. But there's good reason why those types of things don't happen. And the reality is that it's a fairly significant process that we're going to have to go through as a municipality to do that. So my strong suggestion, and I'm hoping the rest of council agrees, is that the BIA needs to come with a solid plan as to what they're thinking about. Make sure that you've gone through and talked to the owners in the downtown area and make sure that they're on board, because the last time this was discussed, it was like, oh my God, you're going to raise the taxes on us with this? Like, are you people insane? So, like, it's really important to go and do the legwork to make sure that everything is set before all of this stuff goes forward. And then bring it to council, and then we do all the public work that we have to do this, because it's kind of a one-shot thing as we're going through, and if it gets turned down, it could be a real mess afterwards. So, anyway, just my comments on that, so.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, so I completely agree. I wouldn't at all propose that we would be putting a dollar amount in an updated bylaw or expanding in an updated bylaw. However, under Section 216 of the Municipal Act, it is the town's bylaw because we are a local board of council. So I think just bringing it up to date with our current catchment and identifying what those streets are, putting in a levy, not an amount, like it is black and white stated that our levy cannot go up from $8,000. So however the wording is, maybe look at other BIAs and what their bylaw states. And then from there, once the bylaw is at least updated, then we start the public meetings on increasing the levy, expanding the boundaries. I believe those items need to go to the membership. I will respect council's decision on anything that you do. That would just be through talking with other BIAs as well as OBIA, that council can update our bylaw.
Just a quick comment. And by the way, this has to be upgraded. I totally agree with you. It's so badly out of date, but it does have to be a public process. That's how this thing happened in the first place. So, like, we can't just ad hoc go and change this particular bylaw. It does have to go through a full process. So, and our clerk and CIO can talk to this stuff a lot better, but all I'm trying to say is just make sure you have your BIA members solidly behind what it is that you're going to do before this ever comes to us, because that's the last thing we need, is to do a public process and have the Hatfields and the McCoys going at it over whether or not there's going to be fees raised and stuff like that. So that's just my opinion, so thank you.
Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. Through you to the delegation, thank you very much for coming in tonight. It was excellent to meet you, Stephanie, and I find this really a positive report, and I'm really happy to see it, and I think you've got some really great ideas to move this thing forward. I love your hashtag Be Downtown, and the idea to move the farmers market. I can see that you've really taken, it's only been 2 weeks, but you've really taken a good look, and I like where you're going. I can see some changes coming that will be really good changes. That bylaw that's almost 40 years outdated, we absolutely need to take some first steps. We need to figure out to move this forward, because 40 years is a long time. And if we want the BIA and the downtown to start to flourish, I think maybe that's where we need to start. So it's a good starting point, and it'll be a long process. So the businesses can come along with us as we work through it. So I would just like to ask, maybe, I don't know if there's anyone could add a little detail for me on this zoning bylaw, what would be first steps? Can anyone, I don't know,
If
you're
I
prepared to
may,
answer that, or?
if I may, I think there's going to be a time that we can get into the details of the bylaw. I'm not sure that's what we want to try to do here tonight.
I'm not
You got
looking for that, Chair McPherson. I was just looking for just a basic first steps, like what do we do? Like, what do we do with this? That's all. I don't want
As I
detail.
understand the bylaw, and Stephanie, I know you've been down this road before, so correct me if I'm wrong. The process is to get a 2/3 vote from the current members to be able to expand the bylaw. Is that fair?
That would be correct. To expand or increase any monies, we would need to go to the membership.
And so they've got to vote in favor of expanding to obviously include others into the catchment area.
Correct. Not only our membership, but the businesses we want to include in it, they have a say as well. And that's 2/3 of whoever attends the meeting where we vote.
Okay.
Okay, that's very
Is that
helpful.
fair?
That's kind of
Okay.
what I was looking for. I didn't know, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Mary Ston.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Stephanie, I think you're in a very, very good position. The board has chosen well. The board has worked very hard over the last 3 years to move things forward. So You have some very strong people who are tremendously committed, and that's not a bad place to start when you're a new employee with the energy that you've got. So, you know, I certainly want to give credit to everybody that's worked really hard on this. And like a lot of people, I've seen this, you know, wax and wane, and it's got to be tough to remain optimistic. But you are optimistic, but you're not coming here without credentials. And it's very, very obvious that you have expertise and that you have a plan. You've got a strong board, and I just wish you well. And as far as any support that I can provide, I absolutely will be behind you, as I know everyone around this table will be, because this is just like spring arriving in the middle of February, to feel that there's really actually a plan here, and that there's sense behind it, and there's policy behind it, and it gives us something to grab onto. Maybe everybody won't agree. I have no idea. My gut feeling tells me that things have never been better. I don't know why I feel that way, except that I think that Jennifer and Ray keep smiling, and so I keep thinking that everything is good. Anyway, I welcome you and thank you very much for the energy that you put into this, and just look forward to each step as it comes along, and support you and guide you as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor
Thank you,
Easton.
Mr. Chairman.
Councillor McMillan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Stephanie, for being here. It's the report and the information that you brought to us is very positive, very forward-looking. Hopefully, with your enthusiasm and ability, I would think, to create a very high profile for the BIA, that will be a catalyst for attracting new businesses into the downtown core. So best of luck with it, and I'm glad to see you aboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to move over to our Economic Development Officer, Paul Deaney, for a comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you to the committee. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had the privilege to work closely with Stephanie to discuss, plans for the BIA, and I know Stephanie does have a very clear engagement strategy on reaching out to the businesses. In fact, she's already opened my eyes to some of the businesses downtown and recommended some fantastic chocolate that I went and purchased last week. But there is already a buzz that's happening downtown, which is fantastic amongst the business owners, given that we have identified downtown revitalization as a key component of economic development in our community. And in addition, since day one, I have been working and attending the BIA meetings. So I want to echo the mayor's comments and commend Dr. Darchie and Ms. Turner on their fantastic work with the BIA. And I look forward to continuing working with the board and Stephanie. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And just final comments from me. I really look forward to some of your ideas around the farmers market. I'm thinking we're going to get into a couple of those tomorrow. Stephanie's obviously coming to us, running. She's not going to need to have time to learn the job. She knows the job, and that obviously is a big plus for us. A couple things I picked out of the presentation were certainly expanding the BIA catchment, which has been in front of us for the 3 years, but we haven't moved on it. So, that to me, with the experience you've got doing that is important. Member engagement, which, in the one meeting that I attended where you were there, it was obvious that that's what you've done and that's what you plan to do here. And then funding opportunities and the experience that you've got in raising funds, I think will be huge for us in our sustainability. So, those are some of the key things. There's a lot of other stuff in that presentation, but those are some of the things I took out of it. And I would say that this BIA, and I can say this personally, has a very good working relationship with the council and the town staff. Paul obviously has been to and continues to come to every meeting. We've had Mike at various meetings. We've had others, Carrie, other staff members at the meeting. So there's a very close relationship with the BIA and the council. So, I look forward to working with you and to build out, a strong, vibrant downtown. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion. Moved by Councillor Foster and seconded by Councillor Thompson. Moved to receive the presentation by the Executive Director and Downtown Beamsville BIA regarding an overview of Beamsville's BIA. Your pleasure on the motion. Motion's carried. So there are no items of correspondence for this evening's agenda. We'll move into reports, and our first report is AD 18-02, update regarding the provincial trade mission to China and Vietnam, mission recap, successes, and next steps. Mr. Deanne, would you like to make comment to the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you to the committee. So back in July 2017, the province announced a premier-led trade mission to China and Vietnam, two of the world's fastest growing economies, to help foster trade and help grow Ontario's economy. With one stream of the mission being agriculture and food, it made sense for Lincoln to be on this mission. We did move forward with applying to express interest to go on the mission, and in September 2017, we're selected by the province to attend that mission. The goals we had going into this mission were open new markets for our commodities, attract tourists to our community, highlight Lincoln as a great location for foreign direct investment, build international relations with foreign businesses, organizations, and governments, assist local businesses that have identified exporting as a source of revenue. And I'm pleased to announce that we have met each of those objectives and will continue to build on them in the coming months. Team Lincoln, as you saw in the report, comprised of the town and 5 of our local businesses, in addition, came with us. The Grape Growers, Siouxland Staff Estate Winery, Vinia Estates Winery, Bench Brewing, and Cherry Lane. Together, Team Lincoln participated in over 150 business-to-business and government-to-business meetings while in China and Vietnam. The results, and I think you'll hear that from the delegations this evening, are that they have increased sales to the markets that we did visit. In addition, Lincoln did sign 2 agreements while we were in China, one being with the municipality of Yixing, a French agreement, as well as an MOU with the Chongqing Wine Association. And both these agreements really are to promote Lincoln, promote tourism, and promote our wineries. As Council is aware, the Chongqing Wine Association a couple months or weeks ago did host an event promoting our wineries and market. And we look forward to 2018 and inviting both these partners to Lincoln to continue building on the successes that we had. As for foreign direct investment, I am pleased to announce that as a result of our mission, Rockaway Glen was recently sold to a group of investors that we met through the mission. The representative of that group is a local GTA realtor and investor, and I recently met with that individual to discuss their plans for the property. They wish to continue to invest in the business, to continue to grow it as a top tourist destination in Lincoln, and they have plans to do that through the addition of some accommodation space on the property. They obviously do fall under the Niagara Escarpment Commission's policies, so they will be restricted on what they can do. But it's a great purchase investment, and they're looking to build on top of that. So as outlined in my report, as the town does embark on more overseas missions to help grow our local economy, there is a need for a travel policy to help guide the bookings of travel arrangements and accommodations. So I look forward to working closely with senior management to help put that policy together. And back to you, Chair, because I know we have some comments from the gallery.
Thank you. So we have 2 unscheduled delegations that would like to provide comments to committee regarding Report AD 1803. Is that 1803 or 1802? 1802. Update for provincial trade mission to China and Vietnam, mission recap and successes and next steps. So in order to do that, I have a motion before me to waive provisions of Council's procedure bylaw, section 13.11, to permit an unscheduled delegation from the floor and allow the following to speak to the item on the agenda: Matt Giffen, Bench Brewing, and Steve Demora, Vianney Estates Winery. This motion requires two-thirds of the vote to carry. If this procedure motion carries, we'll proceed with the delegations. If two-thirds is not achieved, the unscheduled delegations come forward comments for consideration at Council's next meeting on March 5th, 2018. And we have this motion here. Motion moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Foster, that in accordance with Section 2.4 of Town of Lincoln Procedure Bylaw number 2016-40, Council does hereby suspend Section 13.11 of the Procedure Bylaw on this occasion to permit an unscheduled delegation from the floor. Your pleasure on the motion. That motion is carried. Gentlemen, you can come up individually or together if you'd like. That's completely up to you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for having me. So, check 1, 2, 1, 2.
Is the red button on?
Hello?
Is it red?
No, it's off now. Nothing on there.
So press it again.
It's red now. All right, so yeah, the delegation. I've been to China quite a few times by myself and with other Ontario tourism type things. So I'm probably going to have to, come out. You're expecting me to say a lot of good things about this delegation and Team Lincoln. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say a lot of great things. And the reason being, it really was a team. I got to build some really great new relationships, a lot of business to business. And with being said, you want to kind of justify value and put a price on something like this, obviously. And for me, it's quite simple. From start to finish, this team found out that, myself, Vienna Estates, and people like Bench and Matt and Sue Ann and Cherry Lane were all going to be part of this. They reached out to us immediately. I started getting phone calls, JD, Mike, Paul, and I felt really confident, and so did my wife, that I was going, not by myself, but with a whole crew of people that were going to look out for me. And it really was that, from making travel arrangements to, just putting me in contact with people and just listening to what my concerns were for the trip, because I've been on so many of these type of things where you're promised a lot. There's going to be people waiting for you. There's going to be business to business. And there's really not. You go and you do your song and dance and you pour a bunch of wine for free and you come back and there's nothing in return. So from this trip, I got a lot more out of it. I got a bunch of things out of it, and part of it was due to the fact of, we were prepared and we had a team this time. When we walked into the room, we were the biggest delegation there. Like they say, there's power in numbers. So added value right there. The business to business was there. Paul, the Mayor Easton, everywhere we went, besides the other three as well, they were always pulling you. Hey, Steve, there's somebody that's got to meet you. Hey, we got a meeting over here. I was ran ragged. It was no holiday, believe me. I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I came home and I was like, wow, that was pretty tough on me. But without this team, it wouldn't have been a lot harder. So, to add some more value, there was business to business. Everything was taken care of for me, start to finish. All travel arrangements, going through airports, meeting with the right people, sitting down with business improvement associations over there, or mostly their Chamber of Commerce. And to add extra value was the mayor and her delegation to sit with us through these things, vouch for us, to say, these are legit business people back in our country. You need to deal with them. Over there, to have a crew like this step into the arena at any given time was huge. Other people weren't, and they weren't getting the attention we got. Since the trip, not only have I met with the Chamber of Commerce here to start doing business and set up some kind of treaty with the chambers that we met over there, I have gotten on the table right now 2 really substantial orders over there, and we're just working out some of the business details. Before, I got none when I went. I've been 4 times already to China and Hong Kong in the past year, prior to like 2016, 2017, and nothing. So it was due to the fact that we were a team. I appreciated and seen the value in having all of these members with me, and so did the people over there, the people in China and in Vietnam. We were a force. We walked into the room, we had the table, we took the floor, people were waiting for us, and we had the support. I'm speaking, you know, and I think Matt would agree that without them, we weren't going to get that kind of buzz going over there. It truly showed that, you know, we were there to do business. We were there to welcome these people, their thoughts, their ideas, to bridge that gap between, you know, Canada, China, and Vietnam, that, you know, the distance wasn't going to matter because we had a team of people that they can reach out to. Since then, I've been getting the orders in. I've been talking to different people. I'm still getting emails from all of these delegations and speaking with them. I'm always in the loop. It's like I have a team that I don't even have to pay for. You know, it's quite refreshing. You know, they don't ask of much, but they kept giving the whole time. And that, to me, you know, you want to put some value on it or a price. I mean, for me, that's, how do they say in that commercial? Priceless. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, you could throw the numbers around on the budget in this. It's going to keep growing. I got people calling. I get emails about some people coming to visit from China now in the summer. You can't put a price tag on that. You know, and it took a huge effort by them to take us under their wing and, you know, be there for us, and it was great. I mean, you know, if you had to give a letter value, it was in the wine industry, we grade things, and, you know, you can win silver, bronze, gold. The highest thing is double gold. This crew got it. So for me, they're double gold in my books, and I look forward to doing more work with them and, you know, just to see what happens with some of these trade missions. So thank you.
I don't think I'll be as eloquent as my friend Steve. I can't sing as well either. I think we should have Steve sing at the very end of this. Stay in your lane. Sorry. Stay in your lane. Some of our Chinese business partners found it very, very interesting, and it was well received. So yeah, I'd like to reiterate Steve's comments for sure. I found myself extremely grateful and fortunate to be chosen to be on the trade mission. You know, and I'd like to thank Paul for positioning Lincoln to have that opportunity. I'd like to thank the mayor and council for having the vision to support and enable that opportunity. That's incredible. You know, Bench is a new company. We've only been in market for a year and a half. We have a lot of runway locally, a lot of capacity to still fill in Ontario. But we realize that over time, and now as we're in our new premises, we are now brewing, tap and tasting room not open yet, that at some stage, the volume that we'll be able to fulfill will outreach our local markets. And we have to look forward and continue to look at ways to have sustainable long-term growth, and that will come in foreign markets. The U.S. is an obvious one, but we've always thought of Asia. So when Paul called and asked and said, would you consider participating on an Ontario trade mission to China and Vietnam, I said, well, Vietnam, I think they sell beer for 75 cents there. So no, I don't think I'll go to Vietnam, but China, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. So I thank you, and it's a real privilege. The opportunity for us was really to go and assess and find partners that would purchase our beer, import, and most importantly, distribute locally in China, and not just China, but other Asian markets. So that was our real goal of this mission, was to assess. Number two, to learn not just about the market, but the logistics of getting product to market, customs, warehousing, reefer containers, as I'm now told, because beer's like milk. It's a food product, and getting it from point A to point B is extremely important. If we were looking at just exporting our Balls Falls Session IPA, I wouldn't have done that, because it doesn't have a shelf life that you have to have in order to get to China. It could be sitting on container for 3 months in relatively suspect conditions. Sitting then in customs for another month, like we learned that, which was great to kind of actually have that laid out for us. The products that we intend to export are ones with extremely long shelf life. The wild yeast mixed fermentation beers that we have can have up to 5, 6, 7 years of shelf life. So for us, it's actually perfect. We won't be exporting our session IPA, but we will some of our other beers. So that was important for us to look into. This is my first trade mission. I must say I was extremely impressed with the Ontario government. I never thought I'd say that. OMAFRA. It was phenomenal. The preparation, the organization, logistics, from the very beginning to the very end were top shelf. The lady who provides the oversight of the entire trade mission said, "I've never lost anyone on my watch, and I don't want any of you being the first." And we all listened. So I also was impressed with the consular divisions in each of the cities that we went to. The in-market knowledge that they have and their ability to point you in the right direction with respect to some of the needs when exporting was incredible. I'd urge you, if you haven't already, to look at the portfolio that Paul put together of all the presentations that we actually got to see put together by the consul general, consulates, I guess, in each of the locations. So pretty interesting. I also would reiterate, this trip was not for the faint of heart. It was a grind. And I didn't do Vietnam. I came home and I was tired, and I kept thinking of everybody else saying, wow, you guys must be beat. It was tough. Lots of travel, tight schedule, numerous meetings that we all had, and some late nights in terms of having dinner with some of the other delegations. So it was a grind, but it was great. A great opportunity to really distill and learn about a market in a very short period of time. This opportunity probably cut my due diligence in the China market by 3 to 5 years. The ability to learn what we learned in that period of time and the access given to us was second to none. Having lived in Asia before, I've done business in these countries, but never in this chair as somebody in beverage alcohol. So to learn that and to have our wine partners alongside who had experience in the past and who were able to communicate some of the pitfalls of exporting into China, some of the duplication and some of the things that we saw, that was also very, very good to understand and learn or appreciate in market. Ontario, with our population, going to Chongqing, which is 3 times the population of the province. Talk about leverage and visibility. It's incredible. We were really punching above our weight, but when you think about that in Ontario terms, you look at it in the town of Lincoln terms, we were punching above our weight exponentially. It was incredible. Mayor Easton was the second. How do we say that? Next to Premier Wynne, Mayor Easton was the second government official on the trip and had the gravitas in all of the meetings. The Shenzhen speech was my favorite because before each of the B2B meetings that we had, all the Chinese delegations were there. There would be a welcome by OMAFRA, a welcome by the representative of the local delegation. And on that occasion, Mayor Easton went up and spoke not just on behalf of the town of Lincoln, but on behalf of Ontario and other businesses, and it was extremely well received. And again, to Steve's point, we had that, Team Lincoln. It was great. And Vaughn was very upset that we had this, and all sorts of other folks on the trip were jealous, but also very supportive. So I thought that was great. It gave us an ability and an opportunity to, as Paul has said, shine a light on our great community, our world-class businesses and opportunities for foreign direct investment. In terms of my specific involvement, I guess, I had 18 B2B meetings spread across the 3 cities. I followed up with all 18. They must have had Google Translate in terms of some of my emails. 3 companies responded, one each actually in Nanjing, Chongqing, and Shenzhen. And we received our first order last week from a company called Brewful Life in Nanjing. Placed an order for 95 cases, which is, that's not bad. So we're packaging that as we speak, and that's being shipped next week. And they're taking care of it, which is great. So it's an opportunity for us to learn, again, the logistics and getting from point A to point B. So it's not a lot of money. It's probably less, about $6,000, but still, that's our first, and we're pretty happy about it. We've also been selected to attend the 2018 Beijing Craft Beer Invitational, which is happening next month. This is the 4th annual. So when I went, I brought a bunch of samples, and I met with the purveyor of this Craft Beer Invitational, and he loved the sample so much, he said, "You're in." I went, wow, okay. Tell me more. So it's the fourth annual. There are 40 breweries from the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Denmark, Norway, Hong Kong, and we're the only Canadian. So we're pretty excited. So we've sent over 8 kegs of our beer that they pay for the shipping. So they've taken care of that too. I'm going March 21st for 3 days to be there and rub shoulders with some pretty big guys, like some big U.S. breweries that I don't think I'd have an opportunity to meet with otherwise. But it's open to craft beer drinkers from across China. And we think that this could be a real launching pad for us going forward. And I'd like to thank the town of Lincoln for providing my required certificate of origin for customs. So that was very, very kind. I guess I'm speaking too long here, so I'll just close it up. Really proud to be part of Team Lincoln. And I find it's really incredible as a new member of this business community to receive such strong support from the mayor, council, and staff. I think that's incredible and unique, and we understand and feel blessed in the business community. It was an honor to be part of it, and I'd like to thank everybody for participating. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. And Matt, if you just wouldn't mind staying right there, and we'll open it up for, well, first of all, Paul, if you have a comment, I think there was a comment or two sent in. If you would share that with us.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you to the committee, we did invite all the Team Lincoln participants to come this evening to provide some comments. Unfortunately, the other 3 organizations were unavailable. In fact, 2 of them were out of the country on business, but a couple of them did send in some quick remarks. And just to quickly summarize, because I know we want to get to the questions, Debbie Zimmerman and Matthias Oppenlander from the Grape Growers of Ontario, as I mentioned, did participate in the trade mission. And Debbie writes, I'm disappointed we aren't able to attend this important meeting today. However, we did want to add our congratulations and thanks to the town of Lincoln during the recent trade mission to China and Vietnam. Over 145 of the over 500 registered grape growers in the province reside and farm in the town of Lincoln. The Grape Growers of Ontario were very appreciative of the town's support and effort to promote and support our efforts during the mission. Please extend our thanks to Mike, Mayor Easton Council for the outstanding professionalism shown to us by all. So thank you. From Debbie. In addition, Sue-Ann's staff did write in some comments as well, and she basically says, the Premier's Economic Development Tour to China and Vietnam in November 2017 was a positive experience for both myself and my company. While I said the benefits to me personally currently outweigh the benefits to my company, I do expect the ratio to change as time goes on. The immediate benefits were the networking opportunities, the understanding of the economic climate and dynamics in the region, as well as the awareness of the market structure and consumer habits of the meeting with potential clients. So the long-term benefits of the adventure will be recognized through a great deal of follow-up and communication, but she does expect results from Vietnam in the short term and China in the longer term. To conclude, she says this was a positive trip for all, and she expects investments to flourish with time. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the delegation, or do we want to go to the mayor and Councillor Pachariva. Is that, would you like to make your comments? Mayor Easton?
Well, Mr. Chairman, you know, we went to Holland the year before, and in retrospect, when you look back at what was required to prepare for this trip, you know, we really had a lot of nerve. Sometimes Hoots was a good thing, and we had some good outcomes from that, no question about it. And we also worked very, very hard. But this time, we would never have survived without the kind of expertise that Paul Deanne brought to the table. And it's really why the experience was so great for the businesses and for us as well, because you had to really be on your game every minute. And sometimes you really needed that person to come up behind you and give you a little nudge or a little suggestion that just gave you a bit more momentum, because the cultural elements are something that you can't underestimate. And so you need to have that other set of eyes that's just out there looking after things. And when we sat down at the business-to-business meetings, Mike was always with us too, or circulating around the room, checking out some other event. Paul would do the same thing, and the next thing you know it, they had another meeting for you to attend, or they had somebody else lined up who had traveled an hour and a half or 3 hours or whatever it was that one day, and you really needed to meet with them. And absolutely every experience was so rich and so unique that you just, you know, really felt pretty lucky to be getting all of this attention. But I think that observing the business dynamics was extremely valuable to me. And when you get right down to it, there wasn't anything hard about it, because we were all prepared to just work and work and work until everything, you know, you could start seeing this all gelling. You have to, for me, it was a matter of quickly evaluating where I could be most useful. I could put the chain on and walk around and have my picture taken 600,000 times, which probably happened anyway, or I could pay attention to what the dynamics were in the room, look at the whole group as just that, one big team of ag delegates, and recognize that there was an opportunity for a person in my position to do something really different, and just wait, and maybe it would be risky, and somebody would say, how dare you choose to represent the, you know, the greenhouse industry, or, you know, the guy that was there, I've forgotten his name now, that had the great maple syrup, whoever it was. But at any rate, it was the right thing to do. The tone was right, and I was fortunate to read that right. So every day I had to present that speech. It changed. Unfortunately, I threw out the first couple, which I really regret now, because every day the audience changed. And so I was always worried about making sure that I didn't forget, you know, the parts of it that I thought were going to be important to those people. So we all stretched our potential. We did not know. Chair didn't know. Deputy Mayor didn't know. We did not know exactly what was going to happen in the B&Bs. We had never done it before, but I'll tell you, and I think it's the strength of this council, that very quickly we discovered that, you know, the chair would do his piece, and the deputy mayor would do his piece, and we just fell into it. And then we started to get this rhythm going. And then Mike would be there to do damage control in case we were going too far over the edge. Paul would be making meetings. And this is the way it happened in absolutely every room that we were in. So we did work hard, and I was just really, really beat as well. I think we all were. It was very hard work. We pushed the relationships, and we pushed the potentials that were there. And boy, we seized opportunities, every one of us. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was so successful. I have to tell you a funny little story. When I was reading this article, when I was reading this report, I got to the page 11 where it says the friendship agreement that Mike and I signed. And I looked at the Chinese names, and I found out on the bus one day from this fellow from Newmarket. He wanted to see my business card, so I showed it to him, and he started to laugh. And he said, "What is your name?" And I told him. He said, "Do you know what this says in Chinese?" And I said, "I have no idea." We just had it translated. He said, it says, "Sandra Easton, Protector of the United Kingdom." And I was just absolutely stunned, and I thought, what is he talking about? And then all of a sudden the light went on. If you Google my name, Sandra, it means defender of the people. And it was just, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. Don't ever let anybody translate your name without knowing what they're doing. But it was that kind of a thing. You had to have a certain amount of trust in the system, even though you didn't know absolutely everything about it. Sometimes you didn't know if you were doing the right thing, but we tried not to be, we weren't bombastic. We didn't do anything at all that anybody would consider to be inappropriate. But it didn't mean that you were always secure in the role. And I think that was the difference between going, being in Holland and just soaking up information and asking 6 million questions. And this experience where there were just so many dynamics that you could hardly keep the balls in the air. But I very much appreciate, Mr. Chairman, all of the business that went with this. You brought such credibility to the effort that we wanted to make. And who knows where we will go in the future, but I know that our town is better off for this kind of investment. And, I think each time you become selective in different ways because you've just learned that much more. I'm delighted to know that you are, there's business coming out of this. But it certainly isn't because, it's coming because you put the effort into it. And, I very much appreciate it. We had lots of fun. There's no question about it. We have the little book with all the expressions in it, and sometimes they come out at meetings. There are the jokes, I guess, but those are the kinds of things that happen on trips like this. It was really great. Thanks for coming with us. Thanks for making the investment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you know what? And that was one of the things, too, we found out about our roles going to a communist country, is that the government officials were held in the highest esteem and regard, and they validated everything. And it was all about, and the mayor had mentioned that, and I wanted to make it succinct, though I'm never succinct, and you know me, so I will ramble for a little bit. But Stevie, and one of the Steve-isms, it was about staying in your lane, but finding your rhythm. And that rhythm changed as the days went on. I know that first B2B meeting, I was absolutely terrified. Terrified. What do I say? What do I do? You had to greet people in a certain way. You had to bow and hand them your business card in a certain way. I didn't want to offend anyone. I didn't want to misrepresent anyone, speak out of turn, create an international incident. I think it was Councillor Foster in the back of my head. I don't end up in jail, don't end up in jail, don't end up in jail. But we developed this rhythm over time, and from the chairman starting off with the verbiage and the trade mission, it was so professionally done. I mean, I think going, and the mayor, you can attest to this, having done Holland on your own. This was regimented, and we've got Mr. Deanny to thank for this, because this was his bailiwick. This was, and watching Paul interact with Emerson and Carl and George, the AMAFRA staff, we developed relationships with those people that are, I think, lifelong. They understand what we were about. When the premier at a thing says, "Hey, there's Team Lincoln," I get goosebumps, because you've moved the needle. You've made yourself known on the international stage, and it was really cool. And you know, you're starstruck a little bit, and the chairman and I, we, you know, grabbed it. Hey, can we get a picture? Sure. And just having the ability to shoot the breeze with her. You know what? And I never thought I'd say this. Really smart lady. And just to watch her work the room, and we were kind of gaining a little bit of that, and like the mayor said, you know, let's see how far we can go. And you know, we had sector briefings at each one of our stops, and we got better with them. And you know, the B2B meetings, I mean, we met with, and here's an example, Chengdu China Trade and Investment Chamber of Commerce, Quanxing Investment, Austere Group, which was the Chongqing branch, and it was all about recruiting, property sale, Chongqing Wine Association, which we signed the agreement with, Chongqing Lipton Ecotourism Agriculture Department, A&W Republic Inc., the River Lipton Agricultural Company, which was a group that came, was wondering about winemaking and table grapes and how we can assist. And one of the big things, too, of the whole trade mission was the fact that next year marks the China-Canada Year of Tourism, so 2018. And Canada's hoping to double the number of Chinese tourist arrivals in our country. And I think we did the very best we could to encourage those people to come and come and see what we're doing and come and be a part of it and buy in. And you know what? We had, and by no means was it a lark. I mean, these things were set up 7:30, signing ceremony. So after a little bit and developing the rhythm between the chairman and Steve, it was okay. We're going to meet at the gym at 5:30 and let's go. And breakfast at 7, and then meetings, you know, a sector briefing, a coffee break, Ontario company presentations where each one of the businesses then provided a little background on their company, and the mayor provided ours on the town. Then we had networking lunch, plenary sessions, the B2B groups, and a dinner from 7 to 9. And it was full. And I think, too, though, going on something like this, and again, you get to meet the businesses. Matt, we had never really chatted, and you go, you know what? We're on the same page. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for all of the people that went, but I think it's likewise. I think we're on the same page. I think we're trying to do the same thing. And in Paul's report, the whole idea of a trade mission is to help local businesses facilitate trade and foreign direct investment. And both of you gentlemen saying tonight that you've already done that it was worthwhile, then we did our job. We had a heck of a lot of fun doing it, and you know, and a lot of hard work, but I'm proud. I was really, really proud to be part of it. And in that rhythm, you know, the mayor with the chain of office and going around and providing support to these was like the golden stamp, because like Steve said, she was the second highest ranking political official behind the premier there. So she was a pretty big deal. And
I was taking advantage.
yes, you did.
That's very good.
But you know what? You were awesome. And it was truly an honor, truly a pleasure. And I would go back in a second, because I mean, and that was the big thing too, is that we've made that initial touch point. We've invited them to come over. Matt's been invited to a world-renowned conference, you know, from his thing, but it's all about the follow-up. And with the Chinese and the Vietnamese, it's about that relationship building. You just can't go once, and you've got to keep the relationships up. So I look forward to cultivating this and making it grow, and I just was honored to be part of it. Thank you, Chairman.
So you're saying things went well?
Counselor, don't encourage him.
I'm done, Chair.
Mr. CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I will try to keep my comments incredibly brief. I'm not sure how I follow the two previous speakers, other than to, I think, extend my my gratitude to the businesses that were there. I had the fortune of meeting with Matt today on another item, and we got into talking a little bit about some of the successes he's had, and I've been in communication with Steve as well and heard some of his successes. So, I think when you look at this investment into foreign markets and you look at is there a benefit and why we do it, it is about that competitive advantage. And I think for those of us that went, we saw that competitive advantage of being there and being around the table. It is about new opportunities to sell, and I think both of you have highlighted, as well as our other guests, how we're achieving that. And I think it does provide us that valuable market insight that is only achieved if you're there. So this is a great way to initiate that process. I was happy to be a part of it. I've been part of previous missions. I can tell you this one was focused, the logistics, the groundwork, everything was flawlessly organized. And so I encourage anyone who's got an opportunity from a business sense to join these missions. And it definitely exceeded my expectations. So, my thanks to our businesses, definitely.
Thank you. Mr. Deanne, have you got a comment you'd like to make?
I did. Thank you, Chair. Through you to the committee, and I appreciate the kind comments both from our business community and around the horseshoe this evening. But I also wanted to personally thank CEO Kirkopoulos for the leadership and guidance in putting this together, as well as my colleague Carrie Beattie, who was really instrumental in helping me put together some of the talking points and communication pieces prior to us departing on the mission and while we were there as well. So I just wanted to extend my thanks to them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I will be extremely brief in kind of a wrap-up before we get to any questions. Certainly a very long trip, both in days and in kilometers. Been on a number of business trips in my day, and quite honestly, that is, without a doubt, the absolute longest trip I've ever been on. So many face-to-face meetings. It was absolutely incredible. The number of people coming in. Matt mentioned 18. I don't even know what the number was for us, but there was just, it seemed like we were getting pushed, because the next person was waiting. So from an organization standpoint, it was absolutely phenomenal. It was great to work closely, as was mentioned, with Sue-Ann and Jennifer and Steve and Matt, and to get to know you better. Looking forward to a nice cigar and scotch down the road somewhere, as well as Debbie and Matthias. Debbie and Matthias were operating somewhat in their own sphere, but we got together from time to time, so it was great to get together with them. I come back to the significant investment that our taxpayers are making in this trip, and I think it really speaks to our commitment to the future growth of Lincoln. And we've seen some early wins. We've heard about some early wins, which are great. And I think we just need to continue to track, what's coming out of this particular kind of breaking of the ice, if you will, with China and Vietnam. And a year down the road, or 2 years down the road, or even 5 years down the road, what has happened as a result of this effort. So, look forward to continuing to build the file that we've got, and seeing more and more products heading over there, more Chinese and Vietnamese coming over to visit us, and more of what we've seen already in some of the foreign investments. So, all in all, it was, to kind of sum it up, very well organized, very well executed, and we were all exhausted at the end of the whole thing. Are there any questions? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of quick questions, and by the way, this was a great presentation by all of you. It was a really good overview of what happened and how it went. One of the things that I'm hoping the entire group can think through a little bit further is what additional things can we do as a municipality from now on? Like I think this is a huge base that's been put in place. So, what are the other things that the municipality can do? I'm not looking for an answer, but it's just, I'm thinking that would be the logical next step as going on with this. I have maybe a dumb question for you, but 96 cases of beer, so how are you shipping them over there? Is this an airplane? Because that's just a couple of pallets, right? So
Yeah, the distributor has a Canadian agent, and he's aggregating other beverage alcohol products and putting them in a 20-foot container.
Okay.
That could take up to 2 months to get there.
Okay. And just one last comment. We now have JD as the quote on the upcoming election campaign material for the provincial election, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And not a question, fellas, but just a comment and a big thank you for your comments tonight. I think this is just phenomenal, and that I think that with trade missions, you might wait a long time to see any results from the work that you've done. But in this case, you've got results in 2-3 months. I think that is just phenomenal. It bodes well then for the investment in time that you put into this. So thanks very much for your efforts. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I don't really have any questions, but I certainly have a couple of comments. First of all, I just really want to thank the businesses for putting their faith in our staff and our councillors and mayor that went with you over there. That's putting your money where your mouth is and really sticking your neck out there. And I really do appreciate that. And I think it's going to be the beginning of some significant growth for all of the people that were involved. So I was really proud to hear how well it went, and I was really excited. And, I still can't get over, just how much impact this is going to have. So, and I know how it was in Holland from a standpoint of, how difficult of a pace it was, and obviously it was not as difficult as what you guys went through. So just congratulations for putting it out there and trying to, make things better for this community. So thank you.
Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Chair McPherson, through you to Matt and Steve. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I think it was really great to hear a perspective from two business owners and to get, your side of how it went and, the outcomes. And I get a really good sense just listening to all the comments around the table. And I too am really excited about this great opportunity. And I think there's going to be a lot of things coming down the road and through this delegation and this trade mission that happened. And I think this has been a really great discussion because we can communicate it to people who are asking us about it. And I've got a really good sense of what happened there and how it went. And I'm just really appreciative of the businesses participating and just excited to see where it's going to go. And I'm waiting for Steve to sing at the end.
Can I comment on this? Where am I here? Okay, Lynn, so if anyone asks you anything about it or they need justification, I got a glass of wine for them. You can pass my number on and they can come on up, no problem. I'd be more than proud to speak on this panel's behalf because, like I said, it was priceless.
You singing?
No, not tonight. Come on.
Hey, we're there with you. Come on.
It's been a long day, my man.
Okay. Pump the brakes. Well, Matt, Steve, thank you very much for coming out, taking the time to share your thoughts. It's important for us to hear from your perspective on how things went. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor McMillan, that report number 18-02 regarding the provincial trade mission to China and Vietnam, mission recap, successes and next steps be received for information. Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. Our next report, AD 18-03, Economic Development Strategy regarding an information update and situational analysis. Mr. Deanne, please proceed with your briefing. Sure.
All right. Thank you, Chair and Committee. And just to preempt the questions, no, I will not be singing for you this evening. I don't think the Vice Worship wants to hear my voice sing. All right. So I do have a presentation for two of the reports this evening. I will start with the first being the report AD 1803, Economic Development Strategy Information Update and Situational Analysis. So as the committee is aware, in terms of some background information, in October 2017, the Economic Development Strategy, Employment Land Survey, and Industrial CIP were awarded to Sierra Plating and Management and Global Investment Attraction Group. The project did begin in November 2017, and all three elements of the project are scheduled to be concluded by June 2018. The different phases to complete the economic development strategy, the first being the situational analysis, which will include an investment readiness assessment, a demographic and labor force analysis, an economic base analysis and sector analysis, as well as a preliminary SWOT analysis. So a lot of analysis in this first phase. The second phase being the stakeholder consultations and interim report, as well as the third phase being building the economic development strategy, which will use the information gleaned in phases 1 and 2 to develop that 5-year strategy and action plan. And the final report will be due in June, presented to Council. So in terms of the report was published a couple weeks ago, and it included MCQ1 data from 2017. MZ is a data aggregate that is provided free of charge from AMAFRA. So I actually, within the last few days, actually received updated numbers. So I do have some updated numbers from the report that's actually in front of you, and I'd like to quickly highlight these. So in terms of 2012 to 2017 job growth, the actual town of Lincoln did experience a job growth of about 902 jobs, which represents an 8% growth or 5.7% total percent of Niagara. So Lincoln is 6th overall in terms of job creation in the region. The first being Welland with 3,500 jobs, and at the bottom Waynfleet and West Lincoln actually representing a decrease in the number of jobs. So the initial report that you did see in the numbers in front of you was 300 jobs, but in actuality it's 900. So some of that change is just, changes, additional information coming to MC or AMAFRA through census and other information. So it's just sort of a rolling tally that happens, but it's a good sort of indicator of where this community is going in terms of job growth. Table 2, some updated numbers here in terms of Lincoln's jobs by sector as a portion of Niagara jobs within the region. So the top 4 leading sectors in our community continue to be manufacturing, healthcare and social assistance, as well as agriculture, forestry, fishing and hunting, and administrative support services, waste management and remediation services as well. And you will see in terms of the largest percentage growth being mining at the bottom in terms of 35% and 27% for agriculture. So it just goes to show you the top 4 sectors in our community in terms of numbers, or job growth rather. Or sorry, jobs. The next table, table 3, is Lincoln's jobs growth between 2012 and 2017 by sector compared to Niagara. So in terms of job growth, you do see manufacturing being on the top in terms of 220 jobs, accommodation and food services being 219 jobs, as well as administrative and support waste management being 189. So accommodation, food services, and arts, entertainment, recreation accounted for about 351 jobs growth between 2012 and 2017. Although the census data doesn't specifically identify tourism, if you do include those or aggregate those two numbers, you do get a sense of the jobs growth in the tourism sector within our community. In terms of phase 2 for the stakeholder consultations, so outreach with businesses, residents, business community, NGOs is an ongoing and scheduled to be completed in March. The idea behind the outreach is to ensure our strategy is not developed in isolation, but includes the ideas and opportunities for all of our members of our community to participate. One-on-one discussions with sector leaders began in February and is scheduled to go until March. Our online survey, as you know, launched last week and is active until March 15th. The online survey does include a portion for the public to answer. In addition, if you are a business owner or landowner in Lincoln and you select one of the questions, it does kick you to a second portion of the survey, which deals more with the CIP questions. In addition, we do have a public roundtable on March 21st at the Fleming Center from 2 to 4 p.m., as well as a roundtable session with Council on March 21st from 6 to 7 p.m., which will be held here at Town Hall. In terms of Phase 3, building the strategy and action plan, so as mentioned, the final report and action plan will be completed by June. Elements that we'll be looking at include, but are not limited to, a business retention expansion element, tourism. So how do we grow our tourism sector, and is there a new model that we can help put Lincoln on the map in terms of top tourist destination in Southern Ontario? Investment readiness and attraction, so creating a climate of investment. Of course, downtown revitalization and a youth retention program. So one additional update in terms of, as Council knows, we started this survey or this project, including the economic development strategy as well as an employment land survey and the establishment of an industrial CIP. So throughout the course of this project, economic development and planning staff actually identified the need to broaden our scope to include all employment lands for the CIP, not just the industrial CIP. And part of this is really just responding to what we've been seeing. As you well know, in our industrial sector, we do not have, in our industrial park, we do not have a lot of empty vacant land. So the idea was, how do we incentivize all of our employment lands and not just industrial? So the new CIP will investigate actual agricultural businesses, commercial and industrial operations. Program elements could include, but are not limited to, DC, so development charge deferral programs, grants, and programs to help drive investment in our community. I'll pause there for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Maryston.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question about, and just maybe I'm not keeping up fast enough, but it's on page 22. Are we there? I was listening to you, but I wasn't flipping pages.
Page 22 of the presentation?
Yes. Well, sorry, page 22 of your report.
Of the report.
Yeah. Am I too far ahead, Mr. Chairman?
I don't have the full package, so I'm not too sure what page 22
Okay,
is.
page 22 has table 5 on it, which is the population by age distribution.
Yeah, I have it in front of me.
And so through you, Mr. Chair, my question really is, when I started looking at these numbers and I looked at 0 to 14 up to 25 to 29, that was a total of 8,040 people. And then you go down further and you look at the 55 to 64, and that's 3,065. So when people talk about communities getting older, I'm getting a little bit defensive about that, because I want to understand what that means, because I think that we've got a replenishment plan here, and I just want to make sure I'm on the right track. So when you get to the next page, you look at the 65 plus, that's 5,000, and then you've got your prime working age group. So am I correct when I interpret that as meaning that the 25 to 44 group are replacing the 65 plus group, and those groups are being backfilled with the 0 to 14s, the 15 to 19s, the 20 to 24 group? So have we got a gap there? I mean, I didn't really do any more subtraction, but are we gaining on this, or are we really getting older than I think?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you to the Mayor. So I do want to point out that these are some preliminary numbers from the research and the analysis that we've done in the first part. The interim report will actually dive quite deep into the analysis of what the numbers we are seeing.
Okay.
So I did just want to present Council with some of the initial numbers that I'm seeing, but we will have for the interim report, which will be presented at the next Economic Development Committee meeting in April, a full analysis of these numbers.
Perfect.
So
Thank
just
you very
wanted to
much,
present
Mr.
these on a preliminary basis.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I could have asked you that before, but I didn't think about it. Thank you.
No, I think it's an excellent question and a very good observation. You know, when I think of our town, you know, and hear that we are an aging town, when I see this information, 20% of our town is over 60 or 65, I can't remember what the number is. So there's a big chunk there, but it's not that we're aging. You know, it's not half of our town is over 60. It's a fairly it's a small number. I think we need to see the trend.
Yeah.
You know, and see over time how is that trending. But you know, I think there's a lot of interesting information in the way that data is presented. You know, the one gap I saw was like between 25 and 40 or somewhere in there was we seem to lose people in there. Next question from Councillor Pachariva.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. And I mean, just sticking with that table, and this has been a trend since the time that I've been on council, and it's interesting to see that it still holds through, is that the 0 to 19, percentage-wise, we are higher than any municipality in Niagara, and we also trend above the provincial average. So when we talked about building the Fleming Center as a meeting spot, as a place for youth to meet on their various nuances and programming and things like that, that was the determinant of it, was this trend. And hopefully through our Parks Master Plan, we continue to see that, and we continue to look at programming for other youth that don't play hockey or that don't skate. So, you know, far-reaching things as covering the Gretzinger Pool and you know, just things like that, and our parks and how we provide services to all, because you know, you hear that there's not a lot for youth to do in the town, and we've got to be cognizant of that and develop those alternative things. And I mean, we've put forward the skateboard park, but this, from an economic development point, is fantastic. But our other departments too need to, you know, take a look at this through a snapshot and maybe cater the things that we do towards this and these trends. So, excellent information.
Thank you.
Before you move on, so, and you mentioned the employment numbers, and what I found interesting about those numbers is if you took out the top three, which are I think the three big centers, you know, we're, you know, number 3 within communities of our size, and I mean an 8% increase in jobs. You know, I'd like to think that, you know, this term of council's, you know, focus on ECDEV and on trying to embrace businesses and new companies coming in is starting to show. You know, time will tell. Yeah. But you know, I think those are some nice positive numbers. So, you know, very excited about the whole ECDEV strategy and seeing that materialize, and in all of the engagement within the community and outside of the community, I think is equally as important. So I look forward to that moving along. Oh, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple quick things. First of all, I was really pleased to see the report. There's lots of details in there, and I'm not normally a detailed guy, but it was really revealing to see what the mayor and Councillor Pachariva had identified. And just the mix from youth all the way to senior, and certainly dispels the sort of rumor mill that says we're an aging community, which I was really pleased to see actually the first group on the list, which gave me some hope. So I look forward to the next reports and the whole strategy, because I think we're on the right track, and I'm really pleased to see us moving forward.
Thank you, and Chair, through you to the member. I had a conversation earlier today with the mayor in terms of data, and I think data is king, and I think really I'm a firm believer in informed decisions on data. So, part of why the first phase of this strategy is really getting these numbers is it helps formulate your actions within the next two phases. So, really this forms the basis of what we have in our community, helping understand it, and then moving forward with actual action plans. So thank you.
Thank you. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor McMillan that report number AD 1803 regarding the economic development strategy, information update, and situational analysis be received for information. Your pleasure on the motion? That is carried. Our final report for the evening is AD 18-04 Economic Development Update regarding a year in review and 2018 work plan. Mr. Deanne.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the committee. So I would like to take an opportunity to look at some key highlights that I do have in the report here. So in terms of a 2017 year in review, I say that, 2017 was a stellar year for economic development in Lincoln, and I did pull some of these stats from a previous planning report that I think went last week. But in terms of housing stats, 88 permits were issued in 2016, valued at a construction value of about $23 million. In 2017, that was 159 permits valued at a construction value of $35 million. In terms of business, community, and institutional investment, so we did see 35 permits issued in 2016, which was valued at $11 million. In terms of 2017, we saw 21 permits, a slight drop, but in actuality, the value was higher at $13 million. In terms of new business investment into our community in 2017, we do have Flavor Art, which is coming into our investment park, and they are a food flavoring company based out of Italy. They're currently operating in St. Catharines, but have decided Lincoln will be their permanent base of operations, and we'll be moving some staff over. In terms of 2017, we did have Cohen Pack, which is a plastic packaging company based in Netherlands. In addition, Eyewear Studio on Ontario Street, Route 8 Restaurant, which is on King Street in the plaza there. And great kale salad. If you haven't been, please recommend. I do recommend it. In addition, Up Cannabis on the Service Road, and not to mention, Vintage Hotels was a significant investment in Jordan, and I was there last week as part of our economic development consultations. They took me a tour through the property and talked about a lot of great things they wish to do there. And I don't want to give it away, but something about a rooftop patio. Now, in terms of 2017 year in review, some of the activities that I've been working on or worked on was our 2017 AMO delegation, where the town of Lincoln did participate in 8 ministerial meetings. In addition, as we saw earlier tonight, continued involvement with the BIA meetings, as well as active recruitment of the new executive director. The China and Vietnam mission, which was successful, as we heard this evening, the execution of that with measurable results. In addition, Team Niagara. So Team Niagara is actually an initiative organized by the Niagara Region's Economic Development Department and includes all the regional economic development officers. So we get together time to time to talk about, cross-collaboration, how we can work together. If a municipality actually doesn't have an EDO, they're not at the table. There is an individual at the region that is in charge of looking after the regions without economic development officers. But that's one individual looking at 4 or 5 different municipalities. So having a full-time EDO actually allows us to have a voice at that table. In addition, since day one, sort of assessing the economic development environment in Lincoln, so speaking to our business community to ascertain their priorities and how we can help them, so an open for business mentality, as well as lobbying on their behalf of the province and utilities when issues arise, some things that I've been working on with some of our businesses. In addition to working alongside senior staff, so I don't want to say I'm the sole reason these things happen, but with assistance of them, sort of successfully lobbying other levels of government for funding in terms of, our activities at AMOS, as well as ad hoc outreach for town projects such as Congo Creek and the disaster relief funding and so on. Now, in terms of 2018, the key element of the work plan that we're going to be doing in economic development really is our economic development strategy. This will be finalized in June, and it's really going to outline our activities over the next 5 years. And in terms of that strategy, it's not just the strategy, but it's also an action plan. How do we achieve those goals, and what are the actions, items that we're going to be doing with it? And one big thing in terms of 2018 is a business retention and expansion program, otherwise known as BRNE, and this will really come out of the economic development strategy. So a BRNE program will be launched to help retain the businesses that we have to ensure a climate of continued investment. And I think some of the committee members would have heard me say before, but one stat I like to use is that 80–90% of new jobs in any community actually come from existing businesses. So we do want to obviously focus on investment attraction into Lincoln, but we want to help our businesses expand and continue to invest into our community. So any successful BRNE program actually must be a multi-year and ongoing project, so it's not something you do in a one-off. One other initiative that we'll be looking at is something I term sort of business walks, and it's a key element of BRNE. And really what it is a group of staff and councillors walking our downtown cores to meet with business owners and businesses and to hear their concerns, educate them on the various CIP programs that we have, and in addition collect data which is used for sort of planning and economic development. In addition, ongoing investment attraction and support, so continue to work with our local businesses to assist them with issues that they may have with federal, provincial, or utility companies, something that we've been quite successful in 2017, so I continue to outreach to them. And in addition, as I mentioned, continue to work with new companies looking to establish new operations in Lincoln. I don't want to give anything away, but we do have some irons in the fire that we'll continue to work on. In terms of our going global strategy, I think it would be remiss if we didn't continue to build on the strengths in terms of some of the things that we've done. So obviously our China and Vietnam mission, so continuing to work with the leads that we've generated for the mission. In addition, as I mentioned, with Team Niagara, so we have identified along with our regional colleagues a number of staff-led missions in 2018 to help raise the profile of Niagara region with Canadian consulates and officials in the U.S. If I'm an American company looking to invest in Ontario or Canada, the first thing that the first people that people usually go to are the Canadian consulates, right? They're the ones with have the information in terms of, oh, I'd like to, start up my food processing company. Where can I go? Well, if they don't know about Niagara, then they're not suggesting Niagara, or if they don't know about Lincoln, they're not suggesting Lincoln. So our goal here, along with Team Niagara, is to go there and educate them on the peninsula. In addition, we're going to continue to look at municipal twinning, which is a continued investment in twinning and friendship agreement opportunities with municipalities across the world. Obviously, our first one being building on the one that we did sign with Yixing, being a friendship agreement with potentially moving down a twinning path. One thing I did mention briefly at planning last week was the investigation of a business licensing system in 2018. So the goal here is not really to create red tape or additional burdens on our business community, but rather it's ensure reliable data on who is operating in our community, which new businesses are coming, and how we can help them. So the gathered data will be used for economic development and planning purposes. So if I'm a new business coming into Lincoln today and I buy an existing building and I'm not changing any of the footprint or anything, then there's really no reason for them to come to Town Hall to get a construction permit. So we actually don't know about a new business coming into town. So part of a business and licensing system is to help gather data. As I mentioned, data is king. So the idea is to help gather data on who we have in our community and how we can help them. And last but not least, of course, government relations is an important aspect of economic development. So building relationships with other level governments and working closely with senior staff around the table, we'll continue to push these projects in terms of the Museum and Cultural Center, West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, GO Train expansion, tourism partnership opportunities, as well as funding. And lastly here, economic development is a long-term undertaking. So although there are opportunities for short-term results, the long-term, larger scale community transformation takes time. In terms of creating a climate of economic development, the short-term result really is sending a message that we are open for business, and it's about grabbing opportunity when it presents itself. And I think really, and kudos to council sort of to going down the economic development route, I think we're starting to see, comments in our community about, council being, supportive of business through the creation of Economic Development Office. And I think we saw that last week at the Chamber breakfast was mentioned by an individual there. So the way I look at it is economic development is really about setting the table for investment. The tools we are looking at will help us set that table, and then we're attracting and go out and seek investment, so inviting the guests over for dinner. So you set the table, and then you go and attract that investment. And one more thing here that I did was provided to me by the Niagara Region Economic Development is really foreign direct investment in Niagara. So this map here will show you the various countries that we do have represented in the Niagara region. Lincoln, thankfully, is on that map, and the next slide here, if I turn to it quickly, does show you some of the foreign direct investment we currently have in Lincoln. So it's one element of economic development that cannot be overlooked, obviously, is the FDI, and this list can actually be increased given some of the recent comments that I made earlier and some of the recent investment we've had in our community. And I open to questions.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Deanny. I'm really pleased to see there's about a couple of areas that you're focusing on, which the first one being the BRNE, because the costs to get new businesses to open up in order to increase your employment numbers is significantly higher than to help to encourage the businesses that are currently here in order for them to hire more people. So it's a good strategy. Obviously, you have to do the other as well, but I'm glad there's that focus, and I'm really pleased to see the thought about the business licensing. I think it's a great strategy from an economic development standpoint to know who's here and what they're up to, and be able to help promote and help them to expand their businesses. So there's other great factors that go with it, but definitely those are economic development related. So thank you for including that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Foster.
Kind of coincidentally, I was going to mention, by the way, this is good. I'm liking where you're going with things. But this business licensing system, and I think it's a positive move, but with 8 months before the next election, I'm wondering if this would be something that we would think about and possibly bring into effect with the next council. I think, and the only reason that I suggest something as foolish as that is sometimes the message is more important than what is actually being done, so it can be done right without having a lot of political consequences. So it's my thought. So
thank you for the comment, Councillor, and through you, Chair. So I did say, investigate a business licensing in 2018. The idea is not to be anything implemented until 2019. And as I stated, really, it's not an idea, or it's not a goal of creating additional red tape or burden on our businesses. Quite frankly, a business license could be free. The idea is just to garner that information and figure out, who is out there and how we can use that information to their benefit. So 2018 investigate, potentially 2019 implement.
Councillor Rajima.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. So I'm interested also in the business retention and expansion results. I don't know if we have a timeline for that. I don't mean to put pressure on, but I'm very interested in seeing what our plans are, what kind of businesses, what our long-term goals are, what we want to attract and what we're going to go after, and what we see as maybe some sort of anchor store in the community, or what is it we really want to go after. So do we have a timeline for that?
Thank you, Chair, through you to the committee members. So, the economic development strategy includes, our phase 2 is a lot of consultation. So we're actually out there talking to businesses right now, and we're hearing what their businesses, how they operate, what their concerns are, if they have any, and how we can help. So, the timelines are really the economic development strategy coming out in June. It will identify some of the information, garnered in phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 2 being the consultation. And then in that strategy, we'll talk about sort of business retention expansion, how we can implement a program and speak to them. So, the timelines are the economic development strategy in June, and then the actual implementation of BRNE programs. So going out to more further consultation and more further, business touch points would be following June, and then working our way into the latter half of 2018. And like I said, ongoing. So 2019, 2020, and so on.
So you see this sort of the plan coming out in June, and then the implementation of that plan obviously is an ongoing thing. But by June, we'll sort of have a good idea of a really good solid look at what we have in the community and what we need to go after.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, so that sounds great. Thanks.
Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. Through you to Paul Deaney. This is a really good report, and I really got a lot of information reading it, and I like where we're going, the strategy. I got a little nervous about the business license, but since, you know, I understand how it's going to work, as long as there's no cost or red tape to the businesses, because that would just be a deterrent, of course, and I see in the report that that's not what it's going to be. I'm kind of interested in the business walks and initiative, and I've heard about this about 3.5 years ago, and I'm thinking we need to bring people from other communities to walk around in our downtown to get maybe some different, how outsiders see it. I don't know if that's, because if it's just us going up there and looking, maybe we need to get some new ideas, fresh eyes, or maybe we need to go visit other downtown areas and do the walk around and see. I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in that. So how do you see that working?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, through you. So business walks are really for an opportunity for us, so us at Town Hall staff and council to really get to know some of the businesses in our community, in our cores, in our business parks, and really to hear from them and to get them familiarized with us and some of the CIP programs. So, the idea is relationship building. Okay. So I haven't thought about, I haven't put some thought into inviting other people as well on these, people outside of our community on these walks. It's something I can definitely take a look at. But I mean, best practices, fact-finding missions outside of our community to see how other people are doing economic development and that sort of stuff, 100%.
Just to get some new ideas, right?
Yeah, I know for sure. And I mean, the chair has heard me comment in terms of benchmarking ourselves against other communities. And in fact, our economic development strategy interim report will look at some benchmarking figures. And for example, we've selected Prince Edward County as one, being another tourist destination and a location that we definitely learn from in terms of tourism and marketing and economic development. So yeah, fact-finding missions are totally
that's great.
on deck.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
And Councillor Timmers, there is a formal program through the BIA that does that. That's a very good idea. Has people go to another community and do it, and then they would have people from that community come and do ours. So that is a formal program. So it'd be good to do when we're ready. Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. Through you to Paul. Paul, my question, when you and I sat down to talk about economic development, I certainly expressed my comments on the youth retention program. And so my question is, in terms of the strategy and the action plan, it indicates to me that we'll investigate. So is that to say that we're starting from ground zero, that there is no youth retention program that's been in the works in the past in Lincoln? Obviously, economic development is new, but are we starting from ground zero?
Sorry, through you to the chair. I mean, in terms of a youth retention program, from an economic development standpoint, I definitely look at working with our community partners as well as other individuals in the community to identify youth retention. I don't want to presuppose what the strategy is going to say, which is sort of why I say investigating youth retention, but it is definitely an element we want to look at.
I just think it's absolutely huge, from a parent that's had 3 kids that has gone off to university and community colleges in Wilfrid Laurier and Ottawa and Trent, and having a daughter stay in Ottawa for 4 years. And, I'm hoping that my daughter that's in Peterborough is going to come back here and live and work in the community. But, if we don't have something to attract them and keep them here, they won't be here. So I think that's huge, and I really look forward. I like the idea that you're sitting and talking at the region with other economic development officers, and same thing as what Councillor Timmers was touching on. I remember hearing Mayor Easton talk about her walk through the town of Thorold. early in her term, and looking at what Thorold was doing in terms of enhancing their downtown. And quite often we have consultants come to us and talk about what happens in Port Hope and what's happening in Oakville. And I think there's a lot to be said for us to be keeping, that vision of what's working for other communities. So I know that will be on the top of your list. So great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, thanks very much for all the information you put together. I'm interested to know, though, that in your discussions with potential new businesses that are coming into town, is it a safe assumption that the majority of that is in the West End? And are there discussions about what might happen or could happen in the East End of town?
Yes, Chair, through you. So, I mean, the companies that I have had conversations with tend to be looking a little bit more on the industrial side in terms of the few pockets of available land we do have in the industrial park here in Beamsville. But that's not to mention, we can't look at other elements of our community, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that we are one community. In terms of economic development for Vineland, downtown Vineland is an element in terms of revitalization that I identified in a work plan for 2018. So, we're not definitely just looking at Beamsville. We are looking at Vineland. We're looking at, Jordan, Camden, all parts of our community, Prudhome's as well. So, we're looking at everything.
Yeah, well, I think what you said is very true, because, and I've said it many times too, that the development or the redevelopment of streets through Vineland is a real catalyst to any growth in that part of town. So, thank you.
Mary Sin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There's a few things, Mr. Deanne. I think economic development positions historically were always tough to justify, and when you hire someone from out of town and you have this job and you're never sure how the rest of the community is going to look at it, and then a few months down the road you start to look at the behaviors and the qualities that an individual can bring to your community. And I think we heard this from David Brown last week at the Politicians' Breakfast when, really out of the blue, and he is a newcomer himself, he compliments the council on making the investment in an economic development officer, because a lot of the positive messages that we can describe right now are because there is a plan in place. And I very much appreciate the effort that you have taken to make sure that your plan was understood well before coming before us. Making sure that we really had an idea, and we all had different questions. And I've been meeting with the councillors, and so I'm also hearing from them. What are their priorities? And economic development is very high on the list. Making sure that we have a retail, commercial, industrial, maybe not a balance, but that there is a priority in there that's going to work for the community. So I must compliment you on the progressive nature of this, and really, this is not the end. This is like absolutely the beginning. You just feel like this big door is open up. The French doors are opening, and who knows what's going to be out there. Some things we know about and other things we don't, but it's very, very exciting. And I also want to say, Mr. Chairman, that when you don't live in a community and you put the effort into getting to know the community, not just where people are and where they're doing business, but what is their business, and then going out and helping them where you can, easing things for those where you can't make an absolute outcome, which is often the case, but taking that knowledge out there and making it very visible to people, I think is really been very good for this council. It's a very good news story, and I believe that there is confidence in the EDO position. So that is all very good for us. This plan is very relevant to my way of thinking, and we'll see where it all goes, but there's nothing pie in the sky about this. When you start with your first report, which is data-driven, You know, I have to tell you, I had a conversation with a politician who's retired now who told me that the first thing he did as mayor was that he put somebody to task, a few summer students going out and counting all the existing businesses in the city. And then the second part of that exercise was counting all the empty businesses along the way, going and knocking on doors. Well, it just happened that person happened to be Larry Deanne, who's Paul's father. And he told me that when he was the mayor of Hamilton, that limited data, because there was nothing else available, there was no licensing, there was absolutely nothing, gave him more information about where things needed to be going than anything that the council had available at that time. So not by any stretch underestimating data. And business licensing, if that's the way to go, I'm sure it'll work out. We don't need any controversy. Councillor Foster's right. But we sure do want to know who's out there, because that's what's going to drive our decisions, just like the age-related information is going to drive our decision. So at the moment, we have this really nice position that we're in, where we've had some quick wins, we have an accepting community, and now we've got this substantive plan, and we're going to be hearing about it on an ongoing basis, which makes me very, very happy. So whether it's youth retention or a discussion about whether agricultural lands are going to be classified as employment lands, it's all good news. And thank you very much for this. And it's very exciting and worth the investment. And you know what I always say, every time those checks come in, it's good on you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mayor Easton, for your comments. You know, really hitting the ground running on day one, having spoken to our business community and continuing to go out there and meet people. You know, the one thing I've pleasantly found is when everyone speaks about Lincoln, and whether you're a resident here or you just work here, there's a level of enthusiasm about the community. So, you know, I pleasantly found that, and you know, I'm seeing it on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, I want to build on that enthusiasm. So, thank you.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just, you know, want to echo Council's comments. I mean, it's a fantastic report, and just to the you know, the business walks, Councillor Timmers, the chairman and myself and Mr. Kirkopoulos went around last year at Christmas time, and just because, you know, having the chairman's, you know, our council rep on the BIA, and having been that before, you have meetings, you try to have them first thing in the morning, you try to have them at lunchtime, you try to have them at the evening, but no matter when you have them, certain people can't go. So to actually go and walk into their place of business and say, do you have 5 minutes, maybe bring them a coffee, what are your concerns, how can we get better, this is who I am, here's my card, goes a long way, like just to make those initial connections. And with Paul doing that and learning a little bit about the businesses, you know, buying chocolate today, and I think this goes, and this will tie everything up with a bow. This goes to the visioning exercise that we had today. We need to get everyone to do that. We need to embrace that. Shop local, buy local, whether it's your farmer's market, whether it's your alteration, whatever. It's the only way we're going to survive and we're going to thrive. And, you know, when you have out-of-town guests come on the weekend, you know, you take them to some of the things that are here. And a lot of times we take things for granted, but when you do actually go out there and explore, you find the gems and the nuggets. And by doing that, then those people go and they become cheerleaders. So we need to be cheerleaders in our own right, and then at the same time, you know, there's a confidence and there's, you know, cohesiveness that comes from it. So good on you, and I appreciate the initiatives, and keep going.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor. Thank you for your comments. I do appreciate them. And one thing I do want to highlight is you know, I do look to my council colleagues here and you know, my staff colleagues as well, is you know, if you do come across a business that needs some help, or you do come across you know, a lead generation or anything along those lines, please do you know, send them my way. And I know some councillors have as well already done that. So you know, I look forward to you being the eyes and ears out in the community in addition to myself. So if you hear of anything, please you know, do share it. So thank you.
Okay, and I await our first Vietnamese restaurant to come into town and serve the best
Delicious
pho you ever tasted. Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that report number AD 1804 regarding the Economic Development 2017 Year in Review and 2018 Work Plan be received for information. Your pleasure on the motion? That is carried. Are there any council, and thank you, Paul. Are there any councilor inquiries? Seeing none, everybody's wanting to get home. Are there any notices of motion tonight? No. No. Are there any announcements? Come on. All right. There are no closed session items for this evening's agenda, so there being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.